All right, I'm going to go ahead and get started. My name is Adam. I'm here today to talk about website performance testing. I'm the creator of Foo. So just going to talk about myself a little bit and why I'm here, the importance of website performance testing, the relevance of mobile web, what performance actually means in the context of web. And then I'm going to do a demo of Lighthouse, a few different ways. So about me, I am a software engineer based in New York, consultant. Worked for a bunch of companies including Shutterstock, People Magazine, JCrew, and Salesforce. So in my most recent role, basically our CTO had caught wind that Google was changing their indexing algorithm to target mobile devices. So basically he was like, drop everything that you're doing right now, and I want everyone to focus 100% on performance. So we found that that was actually a larger challenge than we had anticipated. So after that, that kind of drew my focus on website performance, and that's when I created Foo. So I just want to make something clear, I don't work for Google. So a lot of these slides will reference Google documentation and tools, and it's going to move pretty fast, so just bear with me. So we have to ask the question, do we need to care about website performance? We have to weigh the costs and the values. A lot of times it's like, does it matter if we can change the page load by 500 milliseconds or 3 seconds? What difference does it make? Well, knowing what we know about human behavior, users will only tolerate low-performing applications for so long before abandoning them. And we have some case studies that supports this. There's some positive aspects and negative. Pinterest increased their search engine traffic and signups when they reduced perceived wait times. Cook increased conversions, decreased bounce rates, and increased pages per session when they reduced average page load time by 850 milliseconds. So in these two examples, every millisecond counts, and it affects their user base. There's some negative case studies as well. The BBC found that they lost an additional 10% of users for every additional second their site took to load. DoubleClick by Google found 53% of mobile site visits were abandoned if a page took longer than 3 seconds to load. So they're correlating seconds of load time to the percentage of users that abandoned the website. So yes, we do care. As web has evolved, it's becoming more of a browser application platform. So the users are now using multiple different kinds of devices and connections. So it's no longer the same environment that it used to be. In fact, 70% of web traffic happens on a mobile device. Some more facts. Worldwide, more people own a cell phone than a toothbrush. And in 2015, mobile and tablet internet usage exceeds desktop for the first time worldwide. So going back to the point about SEO, that our CTO was so concerned about, he actually had a valid concern because Google indeed confirmed the rumors about the algorithm change by announcing the migration of sites for mobile-first indexing. And even on the search, the search console from Google, they list the different ways to improve SEO, and making your site mobile friendly is there in that list. So now that we have this data, what do we want to do with it? Well, first, we have to take a look at what exactly is website performance. This has changed over time. Traditionally, we thought of performance as a measurement just by some JavaScript events like DOM content loaded, and like no one really knows what that really means except for some developers. And it's a very specific metric. And nowadays, the life cycle of a web page load can be thought of more granularly. So we have to think of this as being a more user-centric experience to measure. We can connect different metrics to a series of questions, like is it happening? We can associate with the first contentful paint. Is it useful? The first meaningful paint. Is it usable? Time to interactive. And is it delightful? Which is really the absence of long tasks, like if we're fetching data and the content is changing around because of that. That's a not so delightful experience. So how are we going to gather these metrics? Well, we could choose a variety of tools nowadays. We have Lighthouse, which is an open source project to improve the quality of web pages. So Lighthouse lists out dozens of different metrics, similar to the few that we took a look at from before. So there's a few important points to consider. Lighthouse provides an overall performance score from 0 to 100, in which the higher is better. Scores are derived only from a handful of metrics, even though it lists out a variety of metrics and it gives you that insight. And many factors play into the scoring, so it's best to run a group of audits and calculate an average score. So here's just a list of the different metrics and how they're weighted by priority, the highest being the highest priority of the Lighthouse audits. So there's 3 ways of using Lighthouse. So one way is in the browser, using Chrome DevTools. I'm going to do a demo of this actually. So I'm just going to pick on the BBC here. And we just open up Google Chrome DevTools and go into the audits panel. You can see that we can actually emulate the device type and the network connection. I click Run Audit. This takes a few seconds. All right, voila. So it gives us a performance score. And you can see it's at the top right there, and it's based on these different metrics, with the exception of estimated input latency. I'm not really sure why they put that there. But you can hover over these different metrics, and it gives you a nice little description of each. And you can even drill into the Learn More link to find the full details about that metric. So it's really helpful information. And if you scroll down, we have the different opportunities to improve performance, including things like eliminate render blocking resources, which you can drill into, and you can see the variety of assets that are loaded, the size of them, and how long they load, the potential savings by reducing that. And diagnostics is just a miscellaneous set of information to help you diagnose performance. All right, so there's another way of using Lighthouse. We can actually run it programmatically. So just going to go back to browser. And on Lighthouse, in Lighthouse's documentation, it actually provides an example of how we can do this in code. I don't want to bore you guys too much, so this part will be pretty fast. But there's an example, and I basically, I'm doing something similar to that in code. So this is some code. I'm passing some options here at the top and just doing basically the same thing that it shows in the documentation. And this is where it's actually calling Lighthouse. So this is an NPM module. And with that, it actually provides a JSON response of all this data by passing in this URL parameter. So it's pretty cool. We can do this programmatically. That's another way. Okay, this is all great, but we can do even better. So there's several Lighthouse integrations. including, so these are all listed in their GitHub page. So here we go. This is all the different integrations. They automate the process of running these performance audits. So Foo is one of these, and just going to go quickly over how that works. One nice thing about it is that you can create notifications that will notify you actually when the performance changes. So I'm just going to show this really quick. And you can choose the actual channel or username that it will post to. This is going kind of slow. All right, this is taking too long. So I'm going to go back and just assume that we created this alert. And we get these alerts, something like this, in Slack, for example, where it tells us if performance has improved or degraded. So that's pretty helpful. We can actually associate it with a certain time. So here's a demo of how that would look. And it's pretty cool because you can actually see the changes over time. This is an example of Twitter, which is really interesting because the first part of the month you can see that they had average performance scores around in the 60s, and then it changes into the 90s and then back to the 60s. So you can see this pattern. And you can actually correlate it to a time of the day and what day it lands on. So another cool feature of Foo is that it provides a public API, and this is an endpoint that we can use. So that's something additional that we can consider. I think you can see where this is going. So if you think of that, how we can trigger a performance test just based on hitting this API endpoint, we can actually integrate this with a CD pipeline. So something like this, we have a test step, we have a deploy step, our post-deploy step. So just think that anytime we have a release, we can run this post-deploy step that will automatically run a performance audit. So I'm going to quickly show how to do that, and that's going to be the last demo here. Sorry. So if we go back to, this is one of the pages that I created. And down here we have an API token. So you would take that and go into our Circle CI configuration. So this is what I'm using, Circle CI for a CD pipeline. And we can go into our settings here. And we can add that page token as an environment variable. Sorry. Okay. So this is our CI configuration file. And that environment variable is added down here. So we're passing it as a query param. And I'm just going to push up an empty commit so you can see how this would work. So we merge to master, and that triggers this CD pipeline. Oops. So we can see that it's running now. So it's creating a container to run the tests, and then it'll create one to deploy this, and then the post-deploy step will come into play. So in the meantime, I'll go back to the documentation. So we can also pass in a tag, right? So this is another environment variable that we can add to our configuration file. So if I scroll down here, this is actually a Circle CI specific environment variable. It's going to give us the build number. So this is still running. Let's see where we're at. All right, it's deploying right now. All right, it's deployed, and now it's running our post-deploy step. So it's automatically hitting this endpoint, and it will trigger a performance audit so that we can actually associate it with a build. Let's see here. So that completed successfully. And we can see that this performance audit is in progress. And there we go, we have a new performance audit down here. We can expand this, and you can see that it lists the build number right there. So it's actually providing a full performance audit. So continuous performance testing by utilizing modern tools and maintaining an advanced flexible pipeline, we can stay informed. Well, these are my references, and thank you guys. I have a couple of shameless plugs in here, and that's a link to the bit.ly to the presentation. Yeah, it's going to be there for 3 seconds, and then it'll be gone. So thank you guys, and thanks for National Software Testing Conference for having me.